Hello and welcome to your in-depth weekly horoscope for week commencing the 19th of September. This is for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you the broad themes to look out for, but please stay with me. I will then dive deep to give you in forensic detail each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. Now, this week could be described a bit like a sports match, a game of two halves, or a week of two halves. The first half of this week has a very strong resemblance to the energies which played out last week. That angle between the Sun and Pluto, very much a transformative aspect, that reaches a peak on Monday and lasts through to midweek. Venus and Mars are still in a right angle, and that lasts through to midweek. And that's bringing a greater sense of tension, but also potential excitement into the romantic realm. And also because Uranus is angling with Venus this week too, there is an opportunity to liven things up a little bit around all sorts of relationships by being a bit more spontaneous and not just going through the same routines and patterns that we can all tend to settle down into. Now also, those two retreating planets of Mercury and Jupiter are in opposition through to the middle of this week, which can see some bubbly conversations. It can also see some intense disagreements. You know, Jupiter is the planet that governs the sign of Sagittarius, which is very much about knowledge, but in the sign of Aries it can be more direct. Now the more moderate energies of Mercury in Libra is asking us all to find a balance, but of course the retrograde can see some cross wires. But later in this week we have one of the biggest events of the whole year. On Friday we have the Cardinal Quadrant 3 as the Sun moves into the sign of Venus, and we have the autumnal equinox. This provides a backdrop for the next 13 weeks, but particularly for the following 4 weeks, relationships are going to be a big part of everyone's thinking. And on this particular event, the Sun and Mercury are absolutely conjunct, or cazimi. So I think important to really take the whole concept of relating seriously. And that doesn't, of course, mean just saying what we want or how we feel. It means being able to listen to other people, but crucially comprehend where they're coming from if they tend to have a different approach to ourselves. And then on Sunday, we have a new moon in the sign of Libra, which just brings even greater dynamism into our need to relate well. But this one's in an opposition with Jupiter. Interesting, Jupiter's still in that retrograde, and I think that this means that there can, if we're open to it, be some really positive exchanges. We see lots of people giving their opinions these days, but it's very important to also have conversations and discussions. And I think as this week goes on, despite any tensions that may be there, and of course Saturn and Uranus are still inching closer to their exact square, which within 1 minute occurs between the 2nd and 12th of October, a repeat of an energy that was so prevalent in 2021 and at the start of this year. There is a lot of tension around. So if we can find a way to embrace this Libran energy of trying to find points of agreement, or to celebrate the things that we share rather than highlighting all the time the things that are different between us, I think it does provide an enormous opportunity over the next few weeks. So Leo, your week commencing the 19th of September forecast sees that link between the Sun and Pluto that was building last week become exact on Monday. If you're needing to move resources around or squeeze a bit more from the available money or assets that you've got, I think you really can reorganize things in a very effective way with this particular link. Also, if you are looking for a job that's going to give you more self-satisfaction, I think your thinking about it can be very pragmatic and realistic, which is something to really work with. Now, of course, Mars continues in the 11th house, which is very sociable and can be great for networking and very friendly, but its link with Venus runs on this week. So if you're single, there may be someone that you encounter in your group or through a friend or a friend of a friend who your attention towards can start to sort of clock up. You can start to become more aware of this person. It may be that actually it's someone that in some ways you wouldn't have a great deal in common with, because the 11th house can be about our higher values, but the second house and Venus is much more about the need for sensuality. So maybe it's someone that's quite friendly with you, but there could be a draw and there could be a pull to get up close and personal. Now, of course, Venus can be about money, and it's linked to Uranus. I think pushes you to stay very open-minded about your approach to, we're all dealing with this very difficult headwind when it comes to increased costs. And Uranus has been saying to you for some while, if you can find a new imaginative way of framing your talents to a wider audience, then seize that opportunity. But of course, Uranus is in that crunching right angle with Saturn. So when it comes to relationship matters, there can be strains with line managers or co-workers or colleagues, or perhaps a partner would prefer you to maintain the status quo, or perhaps they want you to change and it's you that wants to keep things as they are. But with Mercury and Jupiter in an opposition this week still, but both in retrograde, this can be a really good time to do some research or some thinking, or to have some really thoughtful conversations. If you're planning a vacation or a holiday, this aspect can actually be really positive. If you're someone who's interested in, publishing or websites, also very positive. But then as we make our way to Friday, we have the third cardinal quadrant of the year, the autumnal equinox, and the sun makes its way into the sign of Libra, where it's exactly conjunct the retreating Mercury. And this is going to see a speeding up in your situation, particularly over the next 4 weeks, but potentially longer over the next 13. Expect to be a lot busier, a lot more text messages and emails pinging in. You're going to find yourself going on more short journeys, feeling more restless, but also very inquisitive too, which is lovely. And then on Sunday we have the new moon, and this accentuates that autumnal equinox energy, but this also has Jupiter on the 7th house cusp. So if you are going to be heading off somewhere or doing something different or being more spontaneous over the following month, it could lead to some very rewarding encounters. So I think this week essentially is asking you to make sure that the foundations with the resources you've got are solid, but to be open to new possibilities and experimentation. When it comes to relationships, I think things could get quite spicy if you're single. If you're in an ongoing relationship, I think there can be a more serious conversation about work and money. But later in the week, I just think there's going to be a real lightening of the mood, and a sense that things are really speeding up and starting to move in a much brighter way for you.